Hello there, my name is Lorenzo and this is the LML Show. What is the LML Show, you might ask? Well, that's very easy, it's a YouTube channel, as you can see. And what's in the YouTube channel, you might ask? Well, it's very easy. You can expect videos about movies, videos about video games, about books, about board games, stuff that I like and that I decided to talk about, because why not? Hopefully I can make some content which is enjoyable for you to watch and fun for me to do, and let's see where it goes. So, without further ado, because I'm also like 17 months late on schedule, let's get into it. And what do we talk about today? Well, that's very easy. We're talking about I, Robot, a 2004 sci-fi thriller directed by Alex Proyas, who was the director of Gods of Egypt, for those of you who have seen it. The movie is based on the anthology by the same name, written by author Isaac Asimov. This guy, this book. Isaac Asimov was a great Russian writer, naturalized American, who worked in the 60s, 60s, 70s, around that time more or less, and who wrote many great sci-fi classics. He's an author which I thoroughly enjoy and that I encourage you to read if you have the chance. In this movie, they took concepts and characters from this anthology, which is not a book per se, it's more like a collection of short stories, and they put them together with a new story that the screenwriters came up with, and here we have the movie I, Robot. The movie stars Will Smith as a main character, and it also stars Bridget Monahan and Alan Tudyk as support cast. It also stars, more than stars I would say, as a cameo, the guy from Transformers, whose name I find interestingly hard to pronounce, so I have assisted myself with modern technology.
Shia LaBeouf.
There you go, that guy. So what is the movie about, you might ask? Well, the movie is set in 2035 Chicago in a world which is almost run by robots. Robots do everything, they're everywhere and big part of life. And this policeman, Spooner, played by Will Smith, comes back into the police force after being in a car accident. And he's like the only guy who hates robots. As the new generation of robots, the SN5s, are being released to the public, the father of modern robotics, Dr. Lenning, dies by suicide. An hologram of Dr. Lenning makes a phone call to Spooner to ask him to investigate on his suicide. And so Spooner begins to look into the suicide, which is one too many questions. So why would you like this movie? Well, it has a great sense of tension. It's a very good thriller in that sense. It has this great ability to create tension and keep you on your toes all the time, to understand and find out what's going on, where the plot is going, and I think it does it really well. It also has pretty solid acting in it by almost everybody in the cast, and it also has a certain humor, which is quite fun and makes the thriller enjoyable even though it's very tense. So overall, great movie, I love it, I 100% recommend you to watch it if that's the kind of stuff you could be into. Why would you not like this movie? I have no idea. The movie's great, you should totally watch it if that's the stuff you're into. There is one thing, it's filled with product placement, but like to the brink. It's like it's exploding to tell me every 5 minutes which brand I should get into. But that's something that personally I'm willing to look past. So there you go, that's the movie. I encourage you to see it. And now we're gonna talk about the movie in a little bit more detail with spoilers. So for those of you who haven't seen the movie, go watch it now and then you can come back and finish the rest of the video. For those of you who have seen the movie and want to hear some more thoughts about it, well, here we go. So, spoiler alert, and vámonos. So first of all, I would like to talk about the plot of the movie, which I think is very nice and it's very interesting, and most importantly, it's very well implemented throughout the story. Let me elaborate. Throughout the movie, important plot points are scattered throughout, which means that when they become important later on in the story, they don't feel like they've been thrown out of nowhere. You feel like you have been paying attention to what's going on in the movie, and the movie is going for a natural evolution of its plot, not just a random thing. For example, since the very first scene, you can see the signs on Spooner's arm, which are pretty noticeable, but I never noticed them the first times I watched the movie. Even after watching it the first few times, I didn't notice that you could immediately see, you know, one of the plot twists. But it's there right for you to see, but you don't notice because the movie doesn't put attention on it at that precise moment in time because it's not important to the story. It becomes later, but it's already there. Another example is when Spooner goes into Lanning's house to investigate and he finds that video about Lanning talking about the code of the robots, which is basically just Lanning telling Spooner Vicky's the villain. fight Vicky, but he doesn't notice because he doesn't understand, but it's logical that that would be the last video that the Doctor left on his house. Other important plot elements, like the nanodroids or Sony's special characteristics of having no link to the US robotics and having a stronger alloy, are brought up in the movie at points where you don't really need to know those things, but it's important for the movie to do that, because later on when they become important, you don't just go, oh yes, we have to kill Vicky, here, use these nanodroids. Which is never a good idea, is it? So the fact that the movie scatters at these plot points around makes it feel like what the characters do is not just a random plot diversion, but just an evolution of the story given the context we've been given. A scene especially, which to me proves how well written the movie is in certain points, is the massacre of the NS4s. Because we have been told by the movie that the NS5s are destroying the NS4s because they would protect humans. And so what does the movie intelligently do? It shows us a scene where Spooner, the main character, is saved by those same NS4s, which then as viewers makes us understand better the point, oh yes, obviously they would destroy them because they would protect humans, because we've literally just seen them do that. And I just think that's a pretty smart scene. The final plot twist of the movie is probably the less interesting aspect of it, because in a movie where the main character hates robots, the fact that a robot is the villain, I mean, duh. But it doesn't ruin the movie, which in my book is a good thing. Obviously, it's not an incredible subversion of your expectation or anything like that, but it seems natural, it doesn't fuck up the rest of the plot, so to me, that's a plus. Now let's talk about the narrative structure of the movie, which is divided into 3 steps. Personally, that's how I find it divided. Beginning, research, and revolution. The beginning is the first 10-20 minutes when we're introduced to Spoon's character, we're introduced to the world we're gonna watch the movie in, we're introduced to the mystery, Spooner has the chat with Lenning's hologram, and the scene is set, the mystery is laid out, the first questions are scattered around, and we're just introduced to everything that's going on. Spooner's hatred for robots is established, and so we are laid into this world and into this adventure that we're about to enjoy. The second stage, research, is almost everything else in the movie. It's the whole section of the movie where Spooner goes from point to point to follow Lenning's hints in order to find out what's going on, like what's the deal here with the robots and what is it that Lenning wanted to tell me. And this is the thriller aspect of the movie. It's the part of the movie which benefits from the sense of tension which the movie is really good at creating and which keeps you there all the time. It's the part of the movie with the thrill of the thriller. The final part of the movie instead is revolution. And revolution is the action part of the movie because this is a action thriller. So the thriller part is research and it benefits from the mystery, whilst this is the action part of the movie. It's just the final bit leading up to the climax. Is the part of the movie where we know that the villain is Vicky, the characters know that the villain is Vicky, and so the objective of the movie isn't finding out what's going on with the robots anymore, but it's about destroying Vicky. And so after all the tension has been created, it's all released in the action, and there we go with shootings, revolutions that not even France in the 20s. This very distinct narrative structure of the movie allows it to flawlessly transform from thriller to action movie without losing an identity of what it is. You don't feel like there's 2 different genres going on, you don't feel like there's 2 different things going on, you feel like the movie has naturally transformed from thriller to action because the mystery has been solved. And that's a very good thing because it doesn't let you feel like there's a sort of disconnect between 2 parts of the movie, but it all feels like one natural evolution of what the movie should be. And I think it's thanks to this narrative structure, which is very well laid out. It's still the same movie, just with a slightly different feel, and this ability is a great asset. What is maybe the best thing about this movie, it's its ability to create tension in the viewer. The movie makes a really good use of two types of tension. The tension about the mystery that's going on, to know what discovery will be made, and the tension of the expectation of what could happen. And we'll talk about both of them now. Let's talk about the first type of tension first. For the majority of the movie, Spooner is trying to find out what Lanning did, what the mystery is about, what did the doctor want to tell him. And it's the succession of these mysteries which keeps the tension high in the viewer, wanting to know what's going on, where the plot is gonna go, and what's gonna happen next. There are always questions in this movie up until the beginning of the revolution part. And every time one of these questions is solved, we get another question deriving from that previous one. So there's always a continuation of wanting to know where is this all going, what is it leading to. The movie starts with that almost immediately, with Lenning's hologram talking to Spooner and all the kind of mysterious things that the doctor says in that conversation. And once we finish with that, we're left with, questions. How did Lanning break the glass wall? Why is there no surveillance video? And when Sonny is revealed to be in the room, we get the answer to some of these questions, because it kind of solves some discrepancies in Lenning's suicide. But at the same time, it opens another set of questions. What's this robot doing here? What's this deal? What did he do? And so we keep going. The interrogation with Sonny keeps the tension high once again, because it brings more questions to the table. How does Sonny know Spooner? What do his enigmatic phrases mean? Sonny's fake death is the culmination of this mystery, because whilst he's dying, Spooner is getting closer to the solution of the mystery, getting to the junkyard with all the NS4s. And you as the viewer are there with Spooner. We all want to know what was Lanning hiding, what is the mystery about, what's the big revelation, what is it gonna be? Spooner is finishing the puzzle, and we're there for the ride. Wanting to know what's next, this suspense, is what makes the movie live. It's what the movie feeds on. And this all tension is then released in the scene of the massacre of the NS4s, which then kicks off the revolution stage, where it's all about the action. But the reason why that action part of the movie works is thanks to all the suspense and the thrill and the mystery which has been developed for the previous 2/3 of the movie. If that hadn't been done correctly, the action would be meaningless, but it's not, because we have been carried by the movie's ability to create tension in us. And now that the tension is over, we can go straight in the action. The movie also makes a good use of the other type of tension that it utilizes, which is the tension of the expectation of what could go wrong, which in this movie is basically, is that robot gonna kill somebody? That happens with Spooner's grandma, with Bridget Monahan's character at some point. Also, for example, the scene in the highway when the trucks are going parallel to Spoon's car and you know something bad is gonna happen, you're just there sitting. That doesn't look nice. And that scene is filled with suspense and trepidation and expectation of what's about to happen, which is then released with an action scene, which is more or less the whole feel that this movie has. This is a different type of tension, because it's not about the mystery, but it's about what could go wrong in the scene and the fear that we have regarding what could the robots do in this particular moment, because almost immediately we know that the robots are up to no good in the movie. And this ability that the movie has to create tension is very much part of what makes it an incredible experience. Another thing that I highly appreciate about this movie is that even though it's a sci-fi action thriller, it takes its time to develop interesting and well-crafted small character arcs, which then are also important for the plot. Bear in mind, these are not like Game of Thrones style narrative arcs, but for an action thriller, I think they're pretty nice, and they contribute to the plot in an important way. Of the three main characters, Spooner is the most developed one. Sonny gets a weirder narrative arc, he gets a humanizing arc, not really a development arc per se, while Bridget Monahan's character is barely touched upon. So let's talk about Spooner first. He's immediately introduced to us with a few scenes. We see the way we see his morning routine. We see him basically punching over a robot from FedEx, and also literally chases over a robot that's trying to save an old lady's life. And the reaction we get from the crowd, and also when he comes back in the police station, we understand that the taste for robots is that it's just a thing that only he has. Everyone else is fine with robots. So it's a very peculiar characteristic that only this one character has. And a few scenes were presented with Spooner's characters. He's a sassy one, and he hates robots. The most important characteristic is clearly the hatred for robots, and it's this hatred that the narrative arc focuses on, and how Spooner has to overcome it in order to reach his objective. Because paradoxically, to destroy a robot, Vicky, Spooner has to trust another robot. Sonny. So he has to grow throughout the movie in order to achieve its aim. The reason for Spooner's hatred of robots is explained to us in the backstory scene. We see the accident with the small child. We also understand from watching the movie that this guy doesn't have a great social life. He's divorced. He's not enjoying himself. And as a policeman, he has this dedication towards saving people. And we kind of understand why he would have preferred to sacrifice himself and save the child rather than being saved by the NS4. And this hatred he has to overcome. And immediately after meeting Sonny, he starts to humanize this robot that he dearly hates, because even though he tries to negate it, he has felt that Sonny is different from other robots. He can feel it in the way he behaves, and he's already starting to treat him differently. This change in the way Spooner behaves, which is led by Sonny's uniqueness, is continued throughout the movie to the point where Spooner eventually trusts Sonny, and it's thanks to him that he actually manages to kill Vicky. The narrative arc is therefore concluded with success. Spooner had to grow and learn to trust robots in order to achieve its aim. It's not incredible, it's not groundbreaking, but it's a very well established character arc which works fine throughout the movie and which was necessary to continue the plot without being too complex. The work the movie does with Sonny, on the other hand, is a bit different. It's more about humanizing the character. The most important scene towards this goal is the interrogation scene, where we have shown Sonny in its human aspect. In that one scene, Sonny shows emotions that are human, like love, rage, resentment, and we have shown that he shows remorse for what he did to Lanning, and these are all very human things, and it's in that scene that Sonny's role in the story changes from antagonist to just support character, because up to that point he was an antagonist, an enemy. This one scene is very well written because it reaches many different goals just in the one scene. It makes Sonny more human, it detaches him from this role of antagonist, and it also makes us understand as the audience that he's special and therefore will be more useful to the plot later. There's also other moments in the movie when we have shown that Sonny is different, he's more human. He holds Calvin's hand when he's about to be killed, he smiles when she tells him that he's different, and that desire, appreciation towards being different is a human thing, it's inherent to all of us. He asks if dying will hurt, and he says it would be better not to die, which not very machine-like now, is it? And this whole process in the movie makes Spooner then trust Sonny, which then helps in the climax of the movie when Vicky is defeated thanks to Sonny's help. So it's not really massive character arc, but it's just a work of humanizing the character for the audience and the characters in the movie. Calvin's development is very much easier to describe because she basically goes from all robots are good to something more like, okay, no, maybe not that one and that one and all the other ones that are trying to kill me. So she doesn't get a lot more development than that, but that's fine. So again, nothing incredible, nothing amazing, but 1-2 character arcs which work well within the plot and which enhance the experience of the movie, which I appreciate and I think they're well written. To finish up, a quick fire rounds of all the other things that are worth mentioning about the movie. 1. Their acting. Very good acting in a lot of scenes by Alan Tudyk in many scenes where, again, especially when he humanizes Sonny. Will Smith acts great both in the joking scenes and in the more emotional scenes. I think he does a very good job. If we can empathize as an audience with Spooner's character, it's thanks to Will Smith acting in scenes like the ones with the backstory, which he really manages to portray the grief that this person is feeling because of what's happened to them, and the sensation that he's just fighting for a greater good because he has run out of things to fight for himself. 2. The jokes. Great thing about the movie is that even though it has a lot of all this tension going on, it also has a lot of fun. It's very humorly, and there couldn't have been a better casting than Will Smith for the character, because even the way he walks is just fun, and all the little jokes that he makes throughout the movie keep the experience light, because, you know, there's tension and then relax and fun, and then tension and then relax and fun. So it keeps the movie going effortlessly, and it keeps the audience engaged and having a chill time, even though we're having a lot of suspense as well built in. 3. The dialogues. Some dialogues are really nice in my opinion. I think they're well written. For example, there's a direct comparison to how Robertson, the CEO of US Robotics, talks about Lanning compared to how Calvin talked about Lanning at the beginning of the movie. At the beginning of the movie, she gets mad at Spooner for calling the Lanning just an old man. Later on in the movie, Robertson speaks of Lanning as just being one old man, or just he says something along the lines of the mistakes of one old man. And that's probably just the one line that makes Calvin understands how little he cares about landing and makes her double cross him. Or also at the beginning when Spooner and Robertson are arguing about what happened to landing, so Robertson insists on using the word suicide whilst Will Smith uses the word death, which implies homicide, which is a nice little subtle touch to show us what he's thinking. Generally, the dialogues for each character are characterized like you feel like what they're saying is not just what the screenwriter is saying, but what that character would say in that specific moment, which is always great because then it makes enjoyable to watch these characters and talk between themselves. 4. Camera shots. Very simple. There's a lot of good camera shots. There's a nice few changes in pace throughout the movie and some ways the sequences are shot I particularly like. So I think good job there. 5. Cameos. So,
Shia LaBeouf
is in the movie as we talked about. He barely there, but he makes a few cameos which are interesting to say the least. So he comes in and he just says the most random shit that you could come up with, like between him and the screenwriter. Like, I don't know. It's just crazy. The things he says are crazy. And like he's there for half a sec, adds nothing to the story, says some random stuff, and then goes. So yeah, that's about it for him in the movie. And 6. The product placement. So, product placements are in this movie as much as atoms are in my body. Every 2 seconds, they throw in Audi, they throw in FedEx, they throw in the bloody Converse, which Converse are everywhere. What shoes are you buying? Converse. What are you wearing? Converse. Oh no, I ruined my Converse. So yeah, that's always bothers me a little bit. But again, I love the movie, so for me it gets a pass. Also, you gotta find money for that saucy CGI, don't you? And finally, questions, because there's 1 or 2 things that I never quite understood about the movie, so I leave them up to the internet. If somebody wants to answer me in the comments, I would duly appreciate it. Number 1, who the hell was Robertson talking to? There's this scene when Spooner is on the road and Robertson is informed that he's, asking the wrong questions, and so he makes a phone call. The movie makes it look like he's the one that called a strike on him with the 2 trucks full of robots. But then Vicky's the villain and he's dead, so I'm just wondering, was he actually doing that? Or was it like, did he do it and then he got killed by Vicky? Or was it not him, was it Vicky? And if so, who was he calling? Was the movie just trolling us? Was that the point? The other thing is the ending. Like, what does the ending mean for you? Like, what was this director's idea for you? What did he want to show us with the ending, with Sonny just standing there and becoming the man in his painting? Is he embracing in some future or something? I don't know, like, I'm curious, what do you think? Generally speaking, it's a very good movie, with Will Smith and a kitten in the same scene, so what you gonna complain about? And that was it for this video. I hope you found some interesting points to listen to, and I hope you enjoyed your time with me, and thank you very much for watching till the end if you have. If you want, you can like and subscribe, the usual routine that you know. And if you have anything to say, write it in the comments. I'm curious, did you like the movie? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree with what I said? You can leave a comment in the movie, or you can send me a message on Instagram. I thank you once again for being with us, and I'll see you soon with another video. Thank you very much. Bye.